The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
This is Julia Talbot, and I'm coming from the Department of Family and Support Services for the Chicago Resilient Communities Monthly Cash Assistance Pilot Outreach and Community RFP number 8470. I'm going to just go over a few kind of housekeeping things while we wait for more people to roll into this session. We're so glad you are here. Due to the volume of participants, everyone has been placed on mute. We ask that you submit all of your questions via the question box, and we will respond to questions after going through the slides. We had a webinar this morning. We went through the slides and sort of stopped at the end of each section to answer section-related questions. And then at the very end of the webinar, we had just whatever questions needed to be answered, ask away. If you have any technical issues with this webinar, please indicate that in the question box, and we can try to help you with your technical issues. So far, so good. Here is our agenda. Joining me today is Elisa Rodriguez, the Managing Deputy Commissioner at DFSS, Nancy Tao, at the Chicago Recovery Plan Program Manager, and Chris Dennis, the Director of Strategic Planning and Impact. They're amazing colleagues, and I'm very lucky to work with all of them. Chris will be manning the question box, and Elisa and Nancy will be our main presenters today. You guys want to say hello?
Hello, and thank you for joining, and thanks for your interest.
Starting, I think we'll just get started here, since here we are at 1:02. Going with the background, we're going to have Elisa Rodriguez kick us off about this amazing opportunity and how we got there. Elisa?
Thank you all for joining this webinar today. Pilot, specifically the outreach and recruitment RFP component. As you know, and indicated in the RFP, the City of Chicago has authorized a $31.5 million monthly cash assistance pilot within the city's Chicago Recovery Plan. And this pilot will provide $500 per month for 1 year to 5,000 low-income households. The purpose of the program is to reach low-income households in the City of Chicago who have been hit hard by COVID-19, and to support their path to greater economic stability, hence breaking the cycle of poverty. As indicated in the RFP, the pilot is also intended to serve as a demonstration of effectiveness of cash assistance within a broader portfolio of safety net benefits and services, and of city government's ability to meet residents where they are and support their self-defined path toward financial security. Next slide. The Chicago Resilient Communities Monthly Cash Assistance Pilot provides the City of Chicago with a unique opportunity to envision and test a system that reduces barriers to engagement, enrollment, and receipt of benefits, and empowers individuals to use resources to meet the greatest needs that they have. A successful pilot will not only impact Chicago's residents and human services, but will advance the national conversation about direct cash assistance as a policy lever. We have indicated within the RFP 4 pilot goals. The first one being to provide financial relief to mitigate economic hardships for low-income households who have been hit hard by COVID. The second is to improve residents' well-being so that we can improve the financial stability and health and well-being of the program participants and their families. Third is to transform the city's human services. This is geared towards improving and promoting the city's capacity to create and deliver impactful, inclusive, people-centered anti-poverty programs that build on existing safety net. And lastly, to build a field of practice so that we can enable policymakers and advocates across local, state, and federal levels to learn from our pilot, the largest program by reach in the US today. This next slide will show the investments overall that the City of Chicago has made with their ARP funding. The city has proposed these investments to support an equitable recovery based on a whole of government response to community safety, urgent assistance to families in need, access to reliable city services, and a wide set of economic opportunities, which include programming for mental health services, violence prevention, affordable housing, youth, homelessness, arts, and culture. The city's investment seek to have a broad range of anticipated strategic impacts. To learn more about this, we ask that you visit www.chicago.gov/recovery plan. In addition to this RFP, earlier today we had a webinar seeking an administrator for the pilot. There are 2 additional RFPs that are coming out that are related to cash assistance on February 18th. The first one is a $4.8 million domestic relief fund, which will be a one-time subsidy of $500 to eligible participants. The next is a $10.7 million Chicago Resiliency Fund 2.0 for households that were excluded from federal stimulus support. And again, this is a one-time financial assistance of $500 per household. For each of these funds, DFSS will be seeking a program administrator to manage outreach, application, verification, and payment distribution. Now I'll turn it over to my colleague Nancy to talk about the scope and program description.
Thank you. Hi everyone, this is Nancy Tsao. I am a Chicago Recovery Team Program Manager in the Mayor's Office, working closely with the DFSS team to bring this pilot to life. Thank you all for joining us today. So in this next section, we'll be providing a brief overview of the scope in terms of what we're looking for and the responsibilities of our outreach and recruitment agency. As a reminder, please do put any questions you have using the questions feature, and we'll pause at the end of this section to provide any clarifications we can. So, overall purpose of the RFP. We are seeking applications from agencies who have the resources and experience to lead outreach and recruitment activities for the Chicago Resilient Communities pilot. The role of the outreach and recruitment agency is to lead and execute outreach, engagement, and application support strategies that will produce high levels of program uptake. And here we note that in line with our goals, we're particularly looking for agencies that can not only produce that high level of program uptake, but also help us avoid engaging the easiest to serve individuals over the focus populations in most need of support, and deliver a positive and empowering experience to participants that builds long-term trust and engagement with the city. While we are seeking one lead agency, we anticipate that multiple agencies may be required to fulfill the program requirements. Applying agencies may subcontract additional agencies, and DFSS may also elect to award a limited number of smaller grants to reach specific groups or geographies. Next slide. The lead outreach and recruitment agency will be absolutely critical to the success of this pilot, and will manage and coordinate the people, events, and materials needed to successfully generate awareness and completed applications from eligible and focused populations. I may be one slide off here. Julia, sorry, can you go back to the previous one? Okay. Oh, okay. Yep, this is where I expected us to be. Excuse me. And so here are the things we wanted to call out is that the primary responsibilities will include designing, creating, and distributing program materials, both digital and printed, that clearly and effectively communicate the pilot information, participant criteria, and how to apply. To manage outreach and recruitment activities, including of any subcontracted recruitment partners. To create and implement an outreach and recruitment plan for the desired number of eligible applicants. in a planned initial application window of 3 weeks, and to develop and implement a strategy to support interested residents in successfully applying for the pilot, with the focus on those who cannot independently complete the online application. You'll note I said initial planned application window based on your proposals as well as proposals from our program administrator. We anticipate that there may be a need for batching the selection, verification, onboarding, and enrollment in order to get to the 5,000 households we want to serve and do it with quality and speed in mind. So there may be additional application periods to ensure sufficient participation. Okay. Now on focus populations, program eligibility will be based on income and impact from COVID-19. Specific thresholds have not yet been announced, but they will be following Treasury guidelines. The application requirements and design will be determined by the program administrator in consultation with an external program evaluator, DFSS, and the mayor's office. And we expect that outreach and recruitment activities should be focused on 3 groups. So our focus populations here are parents or caregivers or minors, family or informal caregivers of older persons or of older adults or persons with disabilities who require ongoing assistance with daily activities. And the last group is residents who are currently not participating in other social safety net benefits, but do meet our income criteria. And to be clear, these focus populations are not criteria for eligibility, but rather the groups that we aim to prioritize our outreach to from a position of inclusion. In addition, we are seeking agencies with prior experience working with populations who may experience additional barriers to enrollment, including the housing insecure, individuals who've experienced gender-based violence, undocumented residents, veterans, disabled residents, households not connected to broadband, and non-native English speakers. In your proposal, you should articulate strategies to reach these focus populations and to provide targeted application support that reduces barriers to participation. Next slide. The Chicago Resilient Communities Pilot will provide $500 a month to 5,000 Chicago households, which is the largest scale publicly funded guaranteed income pilot in the country. We will be engaging with an external program evaluator to study the impact of the pilot on participating households. That means that selected participants will also be invited to participate in a research study and will also be seeking research participation from households who ultimately are not selected in the lottery to receive the funds. All of our research will be optional and compensated, but we're providing that context because we want to help you understand the volume that we're looking to reach, the number of households we're looking to reach, and help you put together your staffing model and budget to reflect that. So with an assumption of 5,000 households receiving cash, plus as many as 5,000 additional control group research participants, that means that this program will require at least 10,000 applications from verified eligible residents. While we don't know how many applications will be required to achieve that 10,000, we do look forward to reading your strategies to help us get there. And based on interest in other cash relief programs, we have currently estimated to our program administrator agencies that we should expect as many as 50,000 applications. Next slide. A few contract milestones that we wanted to highlight here. First, as a reminder, applications are due February 18th. We realize that this is a short application window, and we're all working as quickly as we can to bring relief to the city's residents. We ourselves are also committed to making decisions a week after that deadline, so you will have your answers quickly. Our selected outreach and recruitment agencies must be prepared to begin contract execution right away in order to meet our objective to launch applications in April, so outreach and applications in April, and to start delivering payments in May. As previously noted, we do anticipate some batching will be required in order to manage a smooth outreach, application, and enrollment process for all. This is also a good time to remind interested respondents that we will require multilingual outreach materials and staffing in the city's top 5 languages. Agencies with existing systems to leverage and the ability to staff up quickly will be in a strong position. Last slide. And performance goals and outcomes. And again, we'll pause right after this to answer questions. So please do take a moment to put your questions in the box. The outreach and recruitment agency is truly a critical role. We seek agencies who can help us reach the articulated focus populations who are in need of financial relief and stability. Our program administrator will be helping us to collect and monitor performance indicators, including, but not limited to, applicant pool composition, percentage and uptake of applications successfully submitted, and program uptake. And also noted here is that some intermediate markers of progress that we will be monitoring will be, first of all, a milestone that the outreach strategies, schedule, and materials will be completed within 2 months. And we'll also be interested to look at the number and composition of outreach event attendees and the total number of applications received. So with that, let's pause to review any questions that have come up to date about the program scope and expectations. Chris, I'll leave it to you.
At the DFSS, we have no questions at this time.
Let's,
All right.
let's move on to the selection criteria. 1 second. So the next few slides, we're going to be reviewing the selection criteria, the criteria that will be used to evaluate applicant capacity. Eligible proposals will be evaluated on the strengths of the proposal and the responsiveness to the selection criteria. This is the section where we ask folks and applicants to really focus in and respond to the questions fully. So under community involvement, we're looking to determine if the agency is engaged in and committed to community involvement. We seek respondents who demonstrate a clear understanding of the focus populations, including their strengths and assets and needs and challenges. We're also seeking respondents that can demonstrate client and community engagement activities that inform service delivery. A respondent that has expertise working with the focus population and has relevant capabilities and or infrastructure needed to serve these groups. Demonstrate a commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and access, and has leadership that reflects and engages the diverse community it serves. Next slide. Under organizational capacity, we're looking to determine if the agency is capable of delivering the program as proposed. DFSS seeks respondents that have qualified staff responsible for program activities, program oversight, and general management of the program. Adequate capacity to hire and manage staff, and adequate systems and processes to support monitoring program expenditures and fiscal controls. Under strength of proposed program, we're looking to determine if the agency is proposing effective program model that the target population and desired results. DFSS seeks respondents that have an effective approach to identifying, engaging, recruiting, and enrolling program participants, including support to overcome barriers to participation. And this is really critical because we want to be able to identify the real hardest impacted by COVID. Clearly defined partnerships, linkage agreements with other agencies that are appropriate to reaching and addressing the needs of the focus populations, and respondents that are able to propose a program supported by a strong evidence base and or aligns with best practices for the relevant field. Under program performance outcomes and quality, DFSS seeks respondents that have a demonstrated evidence of strong performance against desired outcome goals and performance metrics, and any other notable accomplishments in providing services to the focus population. And a respondent that has experience using data to inform, improve its service practices, and a respondent that has a relevant system and processes needed to collect and store key participant and performance data. Under reasonable cost, budget justification, and leverage funds, we're looking to determine if the agency has the financial capacity to operate the program. We're seeking respondents that demonstrate the fiscal capacity to implement the proposed program, and an applicant that has reasonable implementation costs and funding requests relative to its financial and human resources. The proposed budget supports the proposed scope of work or work plan. Under selection criteria, there are some attachments that must be included at the time of application. So please be sure to attach any reports, studies, or documentations that show performance towards reaching the program goals, demonstrate results and accomplishments. Attach resume for key staff that are overseeing the program, as well as job description for key positions overseeing the program. Clearly identify what focus population you intend to target and serve, and also attach your organization's budget for this program. Budget or cost proposals. The term of this contract for this RFP is March 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2023. The amount for this RFP is for 1 year, $100,000, with the expectation that subcontracting will be necessary to fulfill the program requirements. And as Nancy mentioned earlier, DFSS may also award a limited number of $10,000 grants directly to individual community-based organizations that are able to fulfill targeted outreach and recruitment for a specific group and or geography. You must submit a 1-year budget for 12 months of services. Please be thoughtful and inclusive when developing your budget. Apply for your program's actual cost. Use the reasonable cost question on the application to discuss how you determine the cost reflected in your budget. There are some common errors that we always like to talk about. So one, fringes. Please check your calculations. In terms of supplies, these are used frequently under or over budgeted for, and then put your budget in the appropriate columns. Again, once under contract and we have the need to make adjustments to the budget, we can do that. But it'd be really good that at the very beginning, when you submit your application, that you try to avoid as many mistakes as possible so that the reviewer has a clear picture of your budget. Next slide. Advances. So the city and DFSS is working actively developing the details for the advance policy for the delegate agencies. Details of this policy will be shared as an amendment prior to the RFP application's due date. All information concerning advances as it impacts this RFP will be communicated via the amendment process. Selection and transition timeline. So here we are today at the webinar. Again, the due date to submit your proposals, the due date to submit pre-proposal questions is tomorrow, Tuesday, February 8th. Your applications are due February 18th, 2022 at noon. No late applications will be accepted, and the program period begins March 1st, 2022. And again, only because we definitely want to make sure everyone knows the deadline, applications are due February 18th, 2022 at noon. I will turn it over to my colleague Julia to walk you through the application process.
Thank you, Elisa. Why don't we take a quick break for Chris to handle some of the questions that have just come in?
Thank you, Julia. So we had a question about the outreach targeting. The question is, can you just target your agency's program participants if they fit the focus population? Elisa, do you want to take that question?
The answer would be yes. So you would be a delegate that would come in for the $10,000 because you have a specific target population that you'll be working with.
And I don't know if we'll need to go back to a previous slide. The next question is, what is the timeline between creating outreach assets and beginning outreach? Nancy, do you want to take that one? I think that would have been referenced in a previous slide about outreach. Or, sorry, about the timeline.
Yeah. So when we mentioned that we would expect contract execution to begin immediately in March, that would be the time frame for creating those assets, and then for the actual outreach events to kick off in April.
And then we just got another question that is, can you clarify if the client receives a one-time $500 a month or every month $500? Now that I'm reading this, I'm wondering if I may be missing something, but I don't know that I see. So if it's a one-time or every month for $500 every month, it is the latter. For this program, the client receives $500 a month for 12 months. I hope that answers your question.
Then there was, can we confirm that only one agency will be granted the $100,000 award?
Right. We're looking
Yes,
for one agency, and then we will have a limited number of smaller $10,000 grants awarded as well.
Yeah, so to be clear on that, we're looking for one agency that will play the role of lead outreach agency, and that lead agency is expected to subcontract with other outreach agencies. DFSS may also award a limited number of $10,000 grants that are doing outreach on their own, not necessarily as a subcontractor to that agency. Elisa, there was another question. I believe we got this question previously. If we are interested in serving as a subcontractor to recruit a population of focus, will there be a public and open process for selecting subcontractors, and when will that take place? Elisa, could you speak to the process for pairing with subcontractors, or how that works?
This outreach and recruitment RFP, for those of you that are looking to work together, asking that you drop your contact information in the chat, and we will then share that email broadly with all of the attendees so that you would have the opportunity to collaborate for this RFP.
We'll repeat those instructions before. Okay, I got a clarification to the how much money per month versus if it's once a month. So for this RFP for outreach and recruitment, the program requirements and activities are associated with the outreach and recruitment functions. The actual payment of clients is a responsibility that's held under a separate RFP, for which we had a webinar earlier today, and that is called the Monthly Cash Assistance Program Administrator RFP. Cindy, I hope that answers your question. No, we're not expecting $10,000 to suffice to do outreach and also pay clients. Yes, totally separate. And then there's another question. Can the same organization apply for and receive the Program Administration Award, which I just referenced, and the Outreach Award, which we're discussing during this webinar? Yes, an organization may apply for both.
There are some other questions going on here, but I think I'm going to skip down to some of these more administrative ones. What questions are due today? If you have questions, please put them in the chat, Mr. Cole. And if you have additional questions that you want to have included in the FAQ document that will become the first amendment to this RFP, please get them to us by the close of business day tomorrow. In terms of the how do we go about getting the application, all City of Chicago or DFSS applications are available and posted only on the city's e-procurement website, and that gives me a great segue for the next portion of this webinar. Just to reiterate, this is like my new favorite day. The applications for this webinar are due, or for this RFP are due on Friday, February 18th at 12 noon. We do not accept, and we cannot accept in our e-procurement system, late applications. So you cannot enter into a contract unless you go through the e-procurement system. You can't get into the e-procurement system unless the application is open. If the application period closes and you miss the deadline, the only way we could get you in is to reissue the entire RFP and have somebody else and have everybody who did apply reapply. And so we really, really don't like doing that, if at all possible. Now I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to talk through about how do you make that application and some of the kinds of things that, some of the skills that you might need to make good application, or at least have a more pleasant, less stressful time with it. So if you have
Julia,
yes,
I'm sorry. Before we dive into this, there was a question that was more kind of programmatic. So we're not jumping around too much later on. If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and address it. There was a question. Oh, actually, I see somebody has responded to it. Nancy, you responded to it in the chat. There was a question about the qualifications for the client that the clients need to meet to receive payments. And the response is that program eligibility criteria has not yet been finalized, but it will be based on income and negative economic impact from COVID. So there will be some documentation that will be necessary to verify eligibility. That is described in the Program Administrator RFP. And then just to be clear, as far as the outreach and focus populations, the focus populations that were described earlier are not a requirement for eligibility. Again, these are the kind of characteristics and experiences among Chicagoans that we're looking to really target outreach on to make sure there aren't disproportionalities in representation among applicants. Thank you, Julia. Sorry to interrupt there.
Oh no, do you want to, there's two more questions that just came in. Do you want to do those before we really get into the beauty that is e-procurement?
Let's go ahead with the beauty that is e-procurement.
Alrighty, so if you've never done an application for the city, you're going to have to register into our iSupplier system, which is what vendors or potential vendors use to access the e-procurement system. E-procurement is the system the city uses for all of its contractual workings. So you do your applications in e-procurement. When you are awarded a contract, the contract goes through e-procurement and you do your vouchering and receive payment by accessing and requesting through the e-procurement platform. To register into e-procurement, you need to fill out a short questionnaire about your organization, hit submit. It will go off to DPS or Do It at the city. And after a few days, then you'll get a link. So it does take a couple of days for you to get that vendor account started in iSupplier. And so if you haven't done business with us before, please register as soon as possible, because you don't want to have don't want to wait till the last minute. As you can see, my screen says start early, save often. That's kind of my mantra for all things RFP. So start early with your iSupplier account, and when you're working on your application, save often, because hey, save often. Just sort of like some kind of stuff, we spend a lot of time working on our RFPs. No aspect of the RFP is done in a vacuum to any other aspect. So if you find yourself looking at a question, you're curious about a direction, you are looking for greater detail as to what we are really asking for or looking for in a provider or a delegate agency, please look at our RFP document. Read the narrative, look at the application questions, look at the selection criteria. All of those things are enmeshed and linked to one another. From our narrative and scope documents and thoughts, our application questions are directly developed. From there, it's all kind of triaged with selection criteria. So if you see an application question that doesn't quite make sense to you, look at the narrative, look at the selection criteria. You will see what our priorities are for that. And just use the information in the RFP document for guidance and formulating your answers. That is in part what it is there for, really. We want you to engage with the program that we've worked to set up. We want you to have questions and get those questions answered as you need. But we want you to basically, feel that you have been informed. Carefully review the selection criteria. The selection criteria is what our evaluation tools are based off of. And so that's going to be giving you the best direction and guidance as to what we are looking for in terms of what the work to be done with any of these programs. In the e-procurement environment, there is a 400-character limit, which includes punctuation and spaces for each response, or it's called a quote, but it's really your response. So each response is allotted 4,000 characters, includes punctuation and spaces, and e-procurement's not going to count those 4,000 characters for you. Furthermore, when you hit submit, you're going to lose access more or less to your application. So you want to definitely do your work offline from e-procurement into some sort of word processing document that will count your characters, so that your answers are not cut off. And then upload it into the application, the e-procurement platform. E-procurement is all built on an Oracle platform, and it works best on Internet Explorer, a browser that has no longer really nobody uses anymore. But it can work successfully on really everything: Firefox, Chrome, Safari, really anything that you want. If you are having a problem with e-procurement, though, and you get thrown out a lot, try operating it on the Internet Explorer browser, because that's what it was designed for. In terms of a little pro tip, do not use the back button on your browser when navigating through the e-procurement environment, because it will keep working, but it will stop saving. And when you go to save, it will give you an error message. And when you go back in, it will have none of your work that you had done since you hit that back button will be there for you. So I've learned this the hard way many times. Don't use that button. So more tips on working in e-procurement, you can submit your application and later amend it up until the due date, which is Friday, February 18th at noon. So you submit, if you can submit, and that means like you can get, if you're new, you can get experience with the submission process, which we will briefly go through. You can pull your application back and amend it as much as you want, but then you do have something in the system if for some reason you missed the deadline or whatever. As I said, avoid the rush and possible mishaps by planning on your submission taking 30 to 60 minutes. I really push people to try to submit a day early. We have 2 RFPs due on the 18th at noon. And while you might have a problem that isn't very big, when you wait until the last minute, the chances are you're going to be standing in line for help, and that there might, there are a finite number of people work to resolve issues or can resolve issues, and you just don't want to be caught on sort of like that kind of a technicality. As I've said multiple times, late applications will not be accepted. If you have questions about e-procurement, you can contact me via email or via on my phone, and I'll have all that information at the end of this webinar. You can also call the e-procurement hotline, 312-744-HELP. They operate Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. I have been known to operate on non-traditional hours. I try to get back to everybody within 24 hours. If the e-procurement helpline people do have a higher level of access, so if you're really in a tangle with e-procurement, I might end up referring you to them. But again, all of these things take time, so I really want to impress the need to try to get this in as early as possible. I know we're working with a compressed timeline, but I try to, you want to have it be as sort of as potentially relaxed as possible, and that usually means getting things in. In terms of technical assistance, if you're looking for more DFSS funding opportunities, you can go to the alert section of our website. There's also a funding opportunities section of our website. Everything RFP gets posted to both of those sections. Here's the customer support and the helpline contact information again. And if you're a person that really just loves to do webinars and look at PowerPoint slides, that's really the way you best absorb information. And you're looking for directions, there's a lot of training materials about the e-procurement system and how to interact with it and make it work for you. And there's materials and documents link. Again, this PowerPoint and the webinar itself will be posted to the DFSS website, so you can look at it at a later date and go back to it as needed. So I'm going to go through 2 very standard things that happen in the e-procurement environment that happen for every webinar, how to accept an amendment, and then also how to do a submission. So we amend our documents or our RFPs to do things like upload corrections or upload additional information. In this case, we know we're going to do an FAQ amendment for this webinar. It's going to have all your questions, our answers. It will be uploaded into e-procurement as an amendment, and you will need to accept that amendment to either start your application, or if you've already started your application, to pull the information you've already put into your application into the amended RFP. When to do that, we're going to go through a couple of steps. I'll show you all the slides that you can see, so you know what, it won't be so unfamiliar. So when you go to accept an amendment, you're going to get a page like this when you're starting your application. You can see here on the right-hand side, there's the actions bar, create quote, and you would hit go. That's to start an application. Since this has been amended, you can view the amendment history here with the highlighted blue. Anything in e-procurement that's kind of that bright blue takes you to somewhere else. It helps you with avoiding that back button that I was talking about. So to look at the amendment history, you would click on the blue on the left-hand side, and then when you were done, you'll hit this create quote and go, and that will take you to this screen where you start the acceptance and acknowledgement process. So where it says 1 here, this is if you want to look at the actual application document, and of which the amendment will be an attachment to. This middle bar here under title, it says the amendment description. That's always just a 1-sentence kind of thing about what's going to be in the amendment, which it will say, like, questions and answers from potential applicants, or more information on the advanced policy or any, whatever else we need to share. Under on the right-hand side here, under Review Changes, you have that little infinity or eyeglass logo. You would click on that to it will take you straight to the amendment itself. And then when you're done with all of that, you're going to acknowledge the amendment by clicking the Acknowledge Amendment button on the upper or lower right-hand side. That will take you to the acknowledgement of this. You're going to click the little tiny box that says, I accept the terms and conditions of the RFQ. And then after you do that, you're going to hit Acknowledge. And then you will go to this screen where you confirm your acknowledgement of the amendment. And you hit yes because you have acknowledged successfully. And then you respond to the negotiation and you want to proceed. And you hit yes. And that takes you to this final slide where you accept the terms and conditions. You do that by clicking the small box on the lower left-hand side saying that you have read and accepted the terms and the conditions. And then you hit accept, and then you will go on your merry way and be allowed into the application that you wanted to start or you have started. Just so that you know, once you accept an amendment, you don't have to do this again. You have to do this for every new amendment, but you only have to do this once. You don't have to go, just because an RFP has been amended doesn't mean that you're going to have to go through the acceptance process every time you want to look at your application. So now we're going to talk about how to submit an application in eProcurement. This is why I say that it takes 30 to 60 minutes. When you're ready to submit, you're going to start by saving your draft one last time, and then you click continue. When you click continue, the eProcurement system is going to do a scan of your entire application and look for errors or things that you might have missed. We're going to do two common errors here. One is you must quote on at least one line in the RFQ. All of our RFQs, we require you to upload a budget, but eProcurement wants us to have to fill out the budget in their system. We don't use that for an application. We don't use that to review or make any funding decisions, but we do sometimes want you can have put in placeholder numbers on this lines under this lines tab. And that is how you will get rid of that particular error message. The other error message that people get often is a quote value is required for requirement first name. And in this case, quote value is eProcurement speak for your answer. The requirement is the question, and the type in the specific question each specific question has a name. In this place, this one is first name. So merely what this one is saying is you forgot to answer this question. Please go and answer this question. And so you keep doing this until you get rid of all of your errors. You just keep hitting, continue and doing the scan. And at some point you will be done. You will have no more error messages, and eProcurement will put your application into the review and submit phase. At this point, you see this printable view over on the right-hand side. You can hit printable view and you will get a PDF copy of your entire application. Excuse me. And so that's what you're going to do. You'll see that submit button is still not available because you still have to review and submit and sign. What you will do though is after if you've done your printable view, basically eProcurement's made this into a very, very long sort of scroll of your application. So you can just scroll down like this. You'll see all of your answers, and you can check your answers. You can review. If you need to edit, you can go back and edit. At the very bottom of your entire application, you're going to do your electronic signature. Here, you're going to put in your name, your title, and then you're going to click that little box. If you do it the other way, you'll get an error message. So just put in your name first, your title, click the box above it, and then this is the same screen, but I couldn't just fit it on one page. There's the submit button is now highlighted, and you are able to submit. So once you click submit, you're going to get a submittal confirmation screen. The eProcurement system is going to send you a confirmation email within 24 hours of your submission. But if you want something more immediate, please don't hesitate to call or to email me, and I am happy to confirm that your application has been received in eProcurement. I can see it really a minute after you submit it, and it's no problem for me to look it up if that gives you some peace of mind. This concludes what I have to say about the eProcurement system, and I can see that we have quite a few questions coming in. So this is our last slide. It has the programmatic contact is Elisa Rodriguez. For non-programmatic questions, you can contact me. And I am going to turn this back over to Chris and Elisa and Nancy to answer some questions. And thank you so much.
The first one I'm going to throw right back at you, which is a technical question around the application process. The question is, so if we have done business with the city, we do not have to redo this process, just upload to our current iSupplier portal. I am going to assume that's referring to the initial registration instructions.
Correct. If you have done business with the city of Chicago before, and even if you have just submitted an application that wasn't funded, but you submitted an application, your organization will have an account in iSupplier. We really do not want people to do multiple accounts for one business, and so it's important to figure out who in the organization has the access information. If you get access via that person. If you are just not sure that your business has an account in iSupplier, give me a call and I can look that up and tell you who in your organization might be the right person to talk to about that. But yes, that is, if you already have an account, do not create another one.
Yeah, we had another question. Is there a certain amount or percentage of the $100,000 that has to be subcontracted to outreach partners as the lead agency? That is not specified in the RFP, so no, there is no direction specifically as to how much has to be subcontracted. Elisa, is there anything you want to add to that response?
Chris, you answered the question.
A question around the budget, the grant period. The question is, the grant period you shared is 22 months, but are we asked to submit a 12-month budget?
So for all of our contracts, we ask for a 1-year budget. And if awarded, you'll submit a new budget every year for the life of the grant. So, take that 12-month budget and use it to determine your capacity in terms of what you're able to do for the program.
Thank you. And then the last one I've seen so far is how many $10,000 grants potentially will be given out? This is something we'll have to circle back through the amendment once we compile all the questions. I personally can't answer that question right now. That's still being determined. So sorry, but we will have a response to you.
This is your time for questions. If there's more questions, we are all here to answer them. Again, everything that is asked is going to be part of an amendment that we post by the end of the week. If you have other questions, you can always send them to Elisa. And the ones that we receive by the close of business tomorrow will also be included in this amendment. I think that if there aren't other questions, I will sort of let you guys go. But is there any concluding remarks that Elisa, Chris, or Nancy would like to make?
I just wanted to circle back to if any remaining organizations on this call are interested in collaborating with other agencies in their application, just put your your organization name and contact in either the chat or the questions. And I'm sorry, Julia, did we say that we would just send a follow-up email to webinar attendees with
I
that
think
information?
that everybody who is interested will put that information as part of the amendment as well. It can be, that will be the list of the people who are interested in collaborating.
Great.
Yeah, I'm sorry if you said this, Nancy, but I assume it's okay if you need a moment to think about it. You can also include that in an email to Managing Deputy Rodriguez. Is that right, Julia? Would that be okay?
Sure.
Chris, I see a new question just came in. Will there be a different RFP for those smaller grants? From Lisa Ziegler.
Oh yeah, thank you. Actually, this was a question that had come up earlier, so I apologize for not bringing that up. Yeah, the previous question was, what RFP do we use if we are interested in applying for the limited number of smaller grants? Thank you for those questions. You can submit a proposal for either through this RFP. So either you can submit a proposal either as the lead agency, that would be subcontracting, or for one of these smaller grants using the same RFP and application. Otherwise, if that's all, I will say many thanks to all of you for your interest, for your time today, and your great questions. You all know this is an extremely important part of this process, is making sure that we can address disproportionality in the way that people access services. So thank you. And yes, the PowerPoint will be shared on the DFSS website.
Well, thank you guys so much. I'm going to leave this chat, the webinar open for another minute or so. So if anybody wants to put in a contact information, they have the time to do so. If for whatever reason you get cut off, you can just email that information to myself or Elisa, and we can make sure that that information is distributed.
Thank you to everyone for your interest.
And we look forward to reading your applications.